Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the LeapSheep Startup Builder Live Q&A. I'm Kirk Drage. I'm the co-founder and CEO here at LeapSheep. At LeapSheep, our mission is simple. It's to help startup founders reach product market fit faster, cheaper, and with less risk. These sessions are all about what's actually working inside early stage companies, because that's changing all the time. We've got to focus on startup diagnostics so that you're spending your time and resources on the right part of the startup journey and avoiding that waste that leads to failure. And we have a real practical focus on how to overcome those challenges that we diagnose to uncover those for founders. And today we're focusing on AI. More specifically, how to apply it in a way that creates real progress inside your startup and real value for your target customers. If you've joined us live, I'd love you to drop a note in, tell us where you're from, tell us about your startup. And if you've got any questions, please drop them in and we'll take those live during the show. Now, as you well know, AI is part of just about every founder conversation. If you've looked at the chart of Y Combinator acceptances in the last couple of years, it's almost entirely been taken over by AI companies, and AI is really changing our economy, and we're still at the very, very early stages of that. And today, I am so pleased that we're going to be delving into AI and how it's getting applied in business. And today's session, I'm pleased to introduce Taru Peters-Naug. He is the co-founder of Do AI. Taru is just a fabulous innovator, developer, data scientist, and he runs the AI Product Lab Accelerator that works hands-on with businesses to turn AI ideas into practical systems. He brings over a decade experience in AI data and leadership, including building data science capability at ANZ and working in fintech environments where execution and outcomes are critical. Taru works closely with teams that move from exploration to implementation. Taru, it's fabulous to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. What an intro. I couldn't have done that better myself at all. Love it.
Hey, we met a few months ago, and I think we really hit it off because we've got a real passion for not just building technology, but actually building technology that creates value and creates successful commercial businesses. Tell us a little bit about your background and journey and how you started this company that now helps founders build those kind of products.
Got a really wide variety of background, to be honest. Like, I've worked in the corporate environment sort of across the board in design and product and data science as it was born. And yeah, boy, data science at that point was AI. And like when I talk about AI now, as I say, it's just what we don't quite understand yet. Yeah. It was data science until we came up with a name for it. I'm not sure, like right now, LLMs might be the name for it. So I'm not sure what's going to happen next. But always been like sort of on the edge of tech.
Yeah.
And then started this company about 2 years ago with our co-founders. And I think the general thinking, well, my thinking at the time, I was head of data at a fintech. We were putting in AI solutions. We were building so much stuff. I had some interns at the time. They were doing awesome work. GPT 3.5 came along, the start of this world came along, and I was like, a lot of what we're doing here is about to be commoditized. That was the pessimistic thinking. Yeah. The optimistic thinking was, I have a musical background. I used to be a musician. And as it was evolving, I was thinking, as much as this is a tool, there is going to be an art to this. And can I combine this technical knowledge that I didn't intentionally build up, to be honest, and like some artistic thinking and apply those both to like businesses going forward. And I also like I think there's an unseen privilege to being able to be a founder. It's quite hard to start a business. And what I was hoping, and I still hope AI is doing, is allowing more people to do that. Yeah. So really passionate about getting more people off the ground. We did a lot to start our own business, and I'd like it not to be so hard for the next career.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so true, isn't it? It is such a privilege to be a business owner. And we were talking off air earlier about how do you learn to become a business owner? It's often you're learning on the job, spending your own time and money, making lots of mistakes, and generally that learning tends to be expensive. But compared to formal learning, where you go and learn about business at an institution, it's an amazing learning path, isn't it? It's a privilege in the sense of you have to be have the right resources behind you to be able to go and do it. but it's also a privilege in terms of it's just so it's rewarding.
Yeah, I had that, like, I did a year of commerce alongside my engineering degree when I first started. And to be honest, there's like some concepts from there that I still use today, but it's very specific, like lean canvases, Porter's 5 forces. I'd say I use those every day, but a majority of it I don't. And like I probably could have learned those somewhere else, but baking those, like, some concepts into the way you do things. And then if I look through my career, human-centered design, massive part of it. That was like a 6 months in a team, and that's just baked itself into what I do. So those like core concepts, I think, really define like how you do things, but there's so many different ways to learn them. And running a business, there's so many random things you learn.
Yeah.
I don't want to learn all of them. Like, I really don't want to, but you have to.
So you've got the great background in data science and in the fintech business that you're in. Were you sort of excited? I guess the question I'm asking is, when did you want to become a founder? When did you see? Had you always wanted to become a founder and start your own thing, or it was just a question of when, or is it something that sort of emerged because of opportunities you saw? Or
it was definitely a question of when. This is my second shot at it. The first time I built a very specific hardware product, which I got beat into by an American market. Wow. And then in the fintech I was in, I don't mind mentioning them, they're called Squirrel. The reason I'm very happy to mention them is it was an awesome place to work. And I was surrounded by a great leadership team, a great CEO who was the founder. And to be honest, he was like a bit of an inspiration as much as anything. And I've had the privilege of being surrounded by great managers, and everyone knew that this was in my bones. So sort of when I vaguely started asking about it, I was sort of not pushed out the door, but politely being like, go for it. We will help you on your way. There was no real reason to leave that job apart from for doing something like this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, reflecting on your experience there, I think a lot of founders have that, but also a lot of founders don't have that, experience that you've had in a corporate environment. You've been in, a big bank, for example, and working with the management team, like you've just mentioned at Squirrel. If there's that kitschy phrase, you can't be what you can't see. As a founder, you're basically trying to build a corporate, right? That's Facebook, Microsoft, Google, Airbnb, they're all corporates now. They started off as, scrappy startups, and that's the sort of trajectory that everyone's on. And so it really helps if you've got, some visibility into how that works. Big corporates have, lots of policies, lots of, clarity about job roles and all that kind of stuff that if you're coming in fresh, starting a startup, perhaps you don't have all that experience. So that's, can you comment on like some of that experience that you've got that you sort of bring to your journey now and how valuable that is?
Yeah, I think the big one is like, so take fintech, take bank, I've worked in a few other corporates as well. They're big, right? They're big, they've got money, they could spend it in different ways. Jim Collins' hedgehog concept is probably what I'm going to lean on here, is like, they know what makes them good. Even a bank, they know exactly what they need to do. And they do not get distracted. With AI, you've got the capacity to be distracted by absolutely anything. You could build anything you want to build. What I learned the most, even at the bank, they had projects coming out the door, like random stuff going on everywhere. But the core concept of what a bank is always going to remain. And you're going to actually see that. You're definitely going to see that in the banking world now. Banks are going to shrink back to being exactly what a bank is. They're going to write mortgages. They're going to hold your money. You're going to trust them. They're not going to bother with the fintech world because the fintech world is doing it, but also the fintech world can build it faster. And at Squirrel as well, again, that I learned so much from, his name's JB, John Bolton. He's got a mind similar to mine where he's got so many ideas, but he's really good at focusing on like, what do we do best? Let's make that better and better. If we're doing something on the side, it needs to contribute back to that hedgehog concept, what makes us us.
That's so good. So I want to bring AI into this now, because this is, I think, the perfect entry point is when we think about, what changes when AI moves from theory to execution. I feel like the answer to that sort of links back to the conversation we've just had. Like, businesses are going to value based on their business model, and they're going to make decisions based on how AI can affect their business model. Can you talk a little bit about that for founders that are thinking about selling into larger companies or corporates? How are they thinking about that decision-making process of how to apply AI?
really two really cool words there, like theory and execution. I think as AI has evolved originally and where it's going, how do you move it away from being a helper in the background to actually helping you actually execute? Everyone can talk to AI via chat. Everyone can now use co-work. What does executing look like in a business? And it's often being like, in a business, what is the task we're going to use AI for? Define that task, use it for that task, and don't lean on, it has to be chat, it has to be this, it has to be that. It's a tool in the toolbox. And actually executing something with it, my biggest learning has been you don't have to execute something crazy. You have to control it. You have to put it in a tight box, put it into your process, make it really specific, and let it execute. Don't let it help you go wider. Let it like point you down and make something very specific. And I think in the world that I've been in, there's always been like, starting from machine learning, there's uncertainty. Like you can't trust it. You're going to be trusting it 95% of the time, and the 5% it could go wrong. Yes, but you know why it's going to go wrong. You know when it's going to go wrong. So focus on the 95%. And if it does do the 5%, you know it's going to get it wrong. Throw it out. Don't let it do it. So executing is really big.
So connect that concept of executing and exactly what to execute, because this is, founders are all about getting businesses to change their behavior. Like, do something this way. Well, now we want you to do it this new way because we want to sell you this great new solution that's solves a bunch of problems for you. How are businesses making those decisions based on what you just mentioned about banks are going to get back to their core business, for example? How are they thinking about, AI's got all this potential and all this opportunity, and they've got, thousands of founders knocking on their door going, we could do this and we could do that and we could do something else. How are banks actually making the decision from all that theory of what's possible to what they actually decide to spend their money on and implement from an AI perspective?
I don't have a bank in my head right now, but I'm going to switch you to healthcare if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I should have banks in my head, been there so long, but I've been far away from them for so long as well. So in healthcare, for example, you've got a process you follow, and every part of that process you spend time. I'll be specific. So a patient referral comes in, someone looks at it, what's wrong with this patient? Let's triage them, book them in, and go from there. That process, like what was the hard part of it? That person triaging it, by the time they're doing it, they're spending a minute max reading a big PDF, making a conclusion, moving on, but they're still spending a minute. What we've looked at for that business is how do we remove that person from the equation. They now check over triages that are uncertain. They create more rules when rules are needed. But AI has replaced that wasted time. And the measure for that was hours of a specific person. And then if we look at beyond the person, like what were they actually doing? What was the skill they had? What are we replicating? That is the way we look at processes and where AI fits. And yeah, skills is a big part of it at the moment. Even we've got other use cases where, say we've got an AI tool that runs across a process. Every bit of the process could be done by a human or could be done by AI. You can decide as a user which way you go. And if you're using AI, you can see the skill used and track exactly how it's doing it. So you've expanded what some people can do, and you've also moved the expertise from that person into code or into AI as well.
So tell me about the decision to implement AI for that particular thing. And I'm thinking back to your comments about the bank. The bank knows that it's going to hold your money, it's going to lend you money. Like, it knows what its business is. Mm-hmm. And healthcare is the same, right? They know what their business is. They're treating people. They've got key business objectives that says they're still a successful company treating people. How did they come to the decision that was an area of their business that was worth applying AI to? Is that a decision that you were part of? If so, can you talk to that? If you weren't part of that decision and you came in after, can you sort of talk to how they might have arrived at that decision based on what you know?
You hit the nail on the head there. What's their core business? Their core business is treating people. The person reading that referral could have been treating people. That's probably it.
Were you, in this case, were you involved in that in helping them understand how to apply AI for that, like where to apply AI rather?
They came to me with that use case. So they had an education course, which I think is like a big part of this, is they understood where AI could fit. They had passed one referral into ChatGPT, given it some rules and been like, that's got it right. How do we scale this? And scaling it and systemizing it is where we came in. But I do think the best use cases come from people who understand their world, understand what they do every day, understanding something about AI. And if this was the same in the data science days, then coming to someone with expertise and being like, how do we systemize this? How do we make this better?
Yeah. And I've got a question from, let's see if I can bring it up, from Jaden here, which is, most founders validate AI-like features, testing outputs instead of economics. But does AI save real time on money, or is it just automating work that never really needed automation? And I think that gets exactly to the point that you're making. The business had done the analysis to decide that this was the part of that workflow that AI could benefit from. Tell me a little bit about your experience with founders, because often what you've described is the opposite to the situation founders in. It's not the business coming to the founder saying, I've got this problem. It's the founder going to the business saying, I can solve this problem for you. How does that typically play out in your experience when it comes to AI?
I think if you go either way, you have to look at the cost to serve. Like the cost to serve with AI, as low as it might seem, the more complicated it gets and the more space you give it, token costs aren't infinite. As a founder building AI product, you can't just say, I'm going to replace, like, knowledge worker, you're going to replace X, Y, and Z with this. A, are you gonna own the cost of tokens? And B, if the business is owning that token cost, it has to pay off on the ROI. It has to be better than what they've got already. That's a really tricky line to follow. And I think it's a trap that lots of founders get into, is that, oh, we built this cool thing, but it's costing me $2 every time someone logs on and they're not paying me. Oops. That's just it's a hole I've seen people get into.
Yeah. So this comes to sort of my next question, which is building systems that actually deliver. What's your experience been in engaging clients to not end up in a situation where the startups never actually get a client to actually make the decision to move forward, or alternatively, they do make the decision to move forward, but you get stuck in this sort of pilot hell where you run a pilot and that never goes into production? How do you actually prove that you're starting to create outcomes?
We've recently had a pilot that never got to production, so I'm in the weeds here. We looked at that with the client themselves, and it was like, why did this happen? The scope was too big. They looked at this as an AI first problem and not a problem. They were like, we've got AI, let's apply it to everything. I'm not going to say who the client is, but to make it obvious, they were trying to replace EA, a personal assistant.
Yeah.
And a personal assistant does so much. Like they do this, and this, and this. And we weren't like, let's replace this one process. We were like, replace this one person who does everything, touches every system. It was AI first, not problem first. So to deliver outcomes, I'd say even for founders, it's what is the problem? Who are you solving it for? How are they going to use it? And make sure, I think, that integration, getting into the weeds again, like being able to be like, what systems you need to integrate with, as easy as it is to integrate with lots of systems, that's more data. It's more technical debt, to be honest. And you need to be like really clear about, why am I doing each thing? This is what I'm delivering value to the client with. Client, customer, whoever it is, person.
Yeah, 100%. Got a question from Anna from Sydney. She's asking, what's a simple way to test an AI idea early without overbuilding?
Back to human-centered design. So old school, I still lean on this, is draw it on a piece of paper, go to a coffee shop, buy people coffee and put it in front of them. In terms of overbuilding, like, this is a funny line, because overbuilding and building is becoming easier and easier and easier, which means, what is overbuilding now? It's simpler to build a tool than to build a pack. So you could go to a coffee shop with a tool. Pardon?
When you say pack, you mean slide deck?
Yeah, like a pitching pack or a slide deck or it's easier to explain an idea by just building a scaffold of it.
Yeah.
The trap is, so overbuilding would be saying, I'm going to assume the customer wants this, 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 and this. I'm going to assume when they click this button, it's going to go there next. That would be overbuilding, not actually technically building it, but over-assuming what the problem is would be my definition of overbuilding nowadays.
So going past the concept is what I'm hearing you're saying. Like, you can build out a clickable concept that's, it's a clickable prototype, we call it. It's probably going too far unless you start testing that with your target market, right?
Yeah, and like human-centered design concepts, the discovery phase is you need to ask open-ended questions. You can't be clicking a button and being like, this is what's happened, what do you think? It's clicking a button, nothing happens. What do you expect to happen here? Why do you think that? Like the 5 whys, digging into that more than being like, you can't lead someone down a path they don't want to be led down and be like, that's the product. Especially early stage, you need to be learning about what that person wants. Yeah,
it's such an important concept. And one of the things that we talk about, and I'd be interested in your perspective here, is we really go to great lengths to help founders understand the difference between product validation, which is a classic failure mode, which is building the product that you think the market wants, launching it and realizing that it's not exactly what they want. And then you've wasted all this time and capital, which is often irrecoverable. And so, the founders are getting smarter now, and they're going, well, we're not going to make that mistake. We're now going to do exactly what you've just described, which is let's build some clickable prototypes. Let's get some people in the room. Let's walk through, whether they see this as valuable and whether they might use it. But that's also a failure mode if you haven't yet validated demand. And there's a big difference between validating your product experience and getting, lots of people to like your product and say, yes, this is a great product. But there's a step even before that, isn't there, about, is there enough demand that people will change their behavior and actually prioritize and spend money to buy your product? Because there's a litany of startups that have gone through that clickable prototype testing phase that have still failed because they could never sell anything to anyone. I'd love to get your take on that if you've got one.
I do. So we have definitely some experience in this space, and this is really tricky for founders because they have an idea that they love, which is great. You should love your idea. The tricky part is being like, let's get something out there and validate that people do or don't want it. And when I say something out there, I mean, definitely in New Zealand, if it's like a New Zealand focused product, or if you're like geographically located and you've got a small target market, it can be trickier. But my thinking is anything you build off the bat needs to have analytics behind it. Push it out there, spend $100 in Google ads, see what people click. The product's going to fail. Let the product fail, see where it fails. But being comfortable enough to say, I'm going to run experiments and let them fail, that I think is something founders need to get the hang of really early. Put your product out there. It's going to break. Let it break. And figure out where people are going.
So that means the goal is to collect learning and data. It's not to earn revenue. So if you're a founder that says, I'm going to earn, I'm going to make this many sales or earn this much revenue after I launch my product in month 1, 2, 3, 4, you're probably already failing as a founder, aren't you?
I try to get founders to be like, how many experiments are you going to run this month? How many different A/B tests can you run? How much closer are you getting to knowing who their customer is? What are they going to pay for? What's the price point? Like, test those things out. Yeah. And it's way more costly to be like, I'm going to build for 3 months, put it out there and see what happens. That costs you so much more than getting something out there early and figuring it out. Yeah,
100%. I mean, it's such an important insight. And I often talk about how that this is like, it's easy to say what we're saying. It's actually really hard for founders to do what we're saying because everybody is pushing them to build. Customers are like, when's this ready? When can I use it? Investors are like, well, as soon as you've got revenue and customers, you're investable. Your family's like, be successful. Startup programs are like, let's build stuff and get it out there. So it's really hard to do what you're saying, isn't it? How do you help founders actually do the right thing as opposed to be swept up in the startup theater and do the wrong thing?
I'd say we have some influence over that, but when we partner with companies, we take equity in companies as well. When we do that, we look for founders who are willing to experiment with us. We are investing, and I think
if you're bringing resources to the table, you've got a bit of authority to make decisions, haven't you?
Yeah, and even just push them in a certain direction. But the founders who are just clients as well, the ones who are successful are willing to get it out there and test. The ones who struggle are like, oh, we need this other feature. We need this other feature. And yes, those features are easy to build. There might be 2 days, but how many times are you going to spend 2 days building an extra feature before you get it out? Like an example, recently we had a customer who was like, we need chat in the app. We are AI first, we knew how to do it, we put it in a day. I almost think that's a trap. Like there's a trap now of being like, we can build stuff so easily, let's just keep on building.
Yeah.
Because even like your product gets so much bigger, there's so many ways it can go. How do you track exactly what customers want if there's 50 features that they can try out?
Yeah.
And like, are you going back to their core proposition? Is it solving your core problem?
Yeah. And one of the things I'm experiencing on exactly this point with founders all the time is, particularly with solo founders, I meet solo founders that's like, my co-pilot Claude has helped me build my feature list, and now I'm building all these features. And I find that AI is enabling bad behavior because it's encouraging founders to build all these features.
I have like a slightly cynical, maybe conspiracy theory here, is that all the AI providers, Claude, OpenAI, none of those models are going to tell you not to spend tokens. They're going to tell you to keep on building. They're going to keep on giving you ideas to keep on building because that's earning that company money. You can't control it. I'm not saying it's uncontrollable, but by default, AI is going to inspire you with more confidence to keep on going. We frame up our AI, so we've got skills, we've got system prompts when we work with clients to be like, do not keep on building until you validate. This is the validation. What is your experiment? What is the number that you're measuring? Get it out there, measure it, then carry on.
Yeah, great feedback. And we were talking earlier about where to find great problems. Love to get your thoughts on that. Can you Google? Can you get your Claude agent to surf the web and find the next unicorn idea?
No, you're preempting that answer, which is totally fair. I think that is what's going to make ideas and founders unique. That the power of AI is given to everyone. Everyone can do that. You need to deeply understand a problem, deeply understand a customer set, deeply understand the people. And when I say deeply, I mean like you should be able to get into their heads for a day. Where do you fit into their day? Gathering information from the internet and building stuff. Companies will just automate that, to be honest. Like if tomorrow I was like, I'm going to build 10 products, I could. They're not going to be good. It's going to be what the internet told me to build.
But so can everybody else, right? So what I'm hearing is the scarce resource now is customer conversations.
And I think that customer understanding, like, can you understand exactly what they want? And then, can you slot into their day is something I always say, like, how do you fit into this everyone's day? It's people who are using your product at the end. People are going to pay.
Yeah.
There is this world where like agents are paying for things, but agents are paying for things because of someone's told them to pay for it. It's still fitting into someone's day.
And have you got any advice or experience to share with founders who are trying to have more conversations? How are you seeing people do that more successfully than not?
I think like, this might be, as a founder, you're going to start by talking to your family and friends. They're going to be good. They're going to give you really good advice. But you need to talk to people who, they're not always going to be your users. You've got to find a way to find your users and talk to them. We encourage people to get out there and find them. If it's like a running app, you need to go to your, what do you call it, the 5K run on the weekends. You need to go to the park run. You can't just be a runner with running friends and do it because your friends are, how many friends do you have that are going to buy your app? You need to find people who will actually buy it. I think that thinking, you can build, like one way to do it, which maybe founders are leading on, is you build agents who are your customer. But even if you're doing that, you need to build those agents after talking to your customers. You can't let AI build its own profile out. It's going to make assumptions. It's not going to be the customer.
Yeah, you just reinforce bad assumptions then, right?
Yeah, we really encourage people to have personas on the wall every day.
Yeah.
So you're looking at the persona every day. Is this feature fitting a persona? If it is, great. If it's not, the feature's wrong or your persona's wrong. But that's more important than whatever fancy feature you're building.
Yeah, 100%. And where are you seeing the biggest errors that founders are making trying to commercialize their AI solutions? Where do you see that as being the biggest failure modes?
The biggest failure mode is you've built a product that is AI only. Like there is no problem underneath the hood. If tomorrow you put the same problem into Claude or Copilot, it would fix it as well. And also, so probably the biggest failure mode is tomorrow it's not going to work, but it's definitely going to work in 3 months' time. You can't race the models. You can't beat the models at their own game. You can't beat these model providers. I don't work with founders who can beat them. They're out there. They're massively funded, but yeah, that is probably the biggest hiccup I see. And like you got to think through things like MCP tools, connections. What data is AI going to have available to it? What are people going to build into their AI? What's going to be off the shelf? You cannot beat that. You can build a UI, like you can build a different way to experience that, but you shouldn't be building you've got to think of it as like, what is the problem that my thing is solving? What's the unique process? What's the unique data? What is my moat? Not just it works and it's fast and it's using AI.
So what I'm hearing is sort of two ends of the spectrum. Don't be a thin wrapper that's going to be overtaken by the foundational models on the next release. And then don't try and beat the models in terms of building something that will just get consumed in the next 2 or 3 model releases that you don't have durability around if you don't have a unique data set or unique insight.
Yeah. And probably the other one, like integration modes, people are often building like, I'm going to build this thing that makes Microsoft Word better. You're going to work for a little bit. It's not going to work forever.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of hearing that you need to have value in software. Like we talk about AI, it's almost like we've forgotten about cloud mobile SaaS, but I'm kind of getting the impression here, which is you need to have substance in a software application. AI needs to be part of that. But if you're not collecting data that's unique, and you can help run business processes and create a flywheel of value where you have some unique context. Is that what you're saying? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'd love to hear your.
Yeah, I think there's when you think of like building product and AI, you've now got to park AI as a builder as its own thing. AI in a product is very different. For example, are you using AI to make a decision in your product? Does your product use AI in a unique way? That is an AI-driven product. Using AI to build a product is just being like, I've got money to spend on 5 software engineers. It's not making your product different.
Yeah.
Does AI even belong in your product? Every product shouldn't have a chat interface. Every product shouldn't have uncertainty within it. But same as when you look at businesses, there's certain parts of the process where AI makes a lot of sense. Put it in there, control it, make it unique. You can make AI really unique to your product. Don't make it generic. Make it have the brand voice. Make it do things for your product. If it's generating things, make it generate things in your style. If you bake it in, it should feel like part of the experience, not like, oh, they've used the model there. I can see that.
Yeah. Great advice. And how are you seeing founders get traction with this in customers and solve that death by pilot kind of approach where you're actually seeing people deploy things into production? Have you got any experience to share in that space?
We've got a few tools out there. One of them that is pretty interesting is called DIY Easy Read. So Easy Read's a document format for people with learning disabilities. It lets them read a document with a picture next to it. Experienced founder who we did that with, and she knew the product wasn't ready, but got it out there, got it tested, got a few paying customers, and from there we're starting to set that flywheel up. Again, users, you could probably do that in an application, but the brand, the way we're doing it, it's built around specific people with disabilities that help build it. We're using frameworks that are established. It's that whole world of what is the moat for that product? It's building maybe a common problem, but in a unique way with specific expertise.
Yeah.
And getting it out there. I mean, getting it out there was awesome with them. It was a product that could have gone so many ways, but just getting it out there, and then we'll iterate on it from here.
Yeah, that's great. And that it sounded like that ability to read easier was an absolutely fundamental business pain point. And
the business pain point was there was people out there wanting easy read documents, and there was one way to get them, and it was very costly and very expensive and took a lot of time.
Yeah. So it goes right back to that sort of first principle, create pain relievers when you're building a startup. Don't create vitamins. Anyone can sort of invent a great way to use AI, but if it's not solving a business problem that someone's going to pay for, it's probably going to be painful.
Yeah, and probably another point that this one's probably brought to my head is, yes, you could do it over here in Claude, but you would trust our app to do it right because we're doing it consistently in a consistent way with expertise. You could do it over here. We're giving you a reason to do it with us, and to pay for it. End of the day, you've got to pay for it.
100%. Got a question coming from Fred at Outer Space. Hey, Fred, it's good to have you join. You've got a great question, which is, if at all, can AI process relate to hardware development? I know you've got some background in hardware.
I do. So I am a mechatronics engineer by trade, which is a fancy-ish way to say robotics. My first startup was a piece of hardware. It's iteration and like failure modes and simulations would be in my head. Like that's how you can quickly validate or invalidate some hardware concepts early. Hardware is an interesting one because I think you have to, depending on what kind of hardware it is, the interaction with the user is still a big part of it. You've obviously got 3D printing, etc. The generative way to make 3D models is still quite tricky. I don't think there's like an easy way to answer this question. I would, if I was doing hardware right now, we're actually about to dive into the hardware world for a specific project. It's going in early with like, what are the, it's not experiments, but what are the prototypes you're going to build? What are your prototypes validating? How much are they going to cost? What is your cost to validate each assumption that you're making? That is what we'll be using it for. We have a research project underway, and this is a really tricky part of it. One thing I would recommend for hardware is before you develop your own, plug in existing hardware together. It'll be lower cost than building your own from scratch. Validate the software component of it on existing hardware, and then optimize the hardware component. But start by not building the hardware.
That's such good advice because it's so expensive. Hardware can get so expensive. But just to add on to what you're saying there.
One interesting point, like iterating in hardware is the iteration cycle is quick in software, right? But iterating hardware, you've still got lead time. So if you build a PCB, you've got to get it back. And then you've got to
pay staff in the meantime, right? So burns goes up. Yeah.
So I would say like the way to think about it is how do you optimize the actual physical production of it? So when you do it, you're experimenting effectively.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, from my perspective, a couple of things that I think about when building either software or hardware, it doesn't matter, but as you say, it's even more important in hardware is go back to first principles, which is the product development lifecycle. If you've got that product development lifecycle, which is like conceive, plan, design, build, etc., you can use AI at every single step of that process to make things more efficient and quicker and faster. But that 7-step life cycle is almost like a law of physics when it comes to hardware design. You skip a step, you're in trouble. AI can help you, do a step better. But I think also the other problem that I see in the hardware space in particular is that product development life cycle is not enough to build you a commercial viable product. That'll just build you a high quality product that customers like. And again, there's a whole litany of, products that customers like I think about the Segway and the Juiceroo in Silicon Valley, if you remember that thing. Like there's so many beautifully designed, awesome products that are just a commercial failure. So you've also got to overlay that commercial validation, which is all about market discovery and demand validation, and then doing, customer and problem validation, and then doing concept validation. That's when the product development lifecycle really begins to kick in. And to your earlier points about prototyping and experimentation, don't assume that the first version of your product is going to be the thing that the market responds to. So you want to run experiments before you build and launch. And AI can help you in every stage of that. But also, if you don't have an experienced operator driving the AI, you're likely to get fooled, as you were saying, by the AI telling you how good you are and how clever your questions are at each stage in that process. So you want an experienced operator by your side.
I have like probably an interesting experience in this space is when I was back at university, we used to build a car every year for a race. It's called Formula SA.
Yeah.
After I left university, I learned about Agile. And I often thought back to like, given we were developing that car every year, there's so many different components, there aerodynamics, motors, engines. There's so much to it. And like, I kept on thinking through like, how would you apply Agile or iteration to this process? And the way I think about it now is like, for example, I'm getting kind of technical here, but for example, like your wing, your rear wing, can you build a scaffold for it that you can keep on adding to and testing as much as possible? How do you reduce the testing process? How do you get into a wind tunnel or test it without a wind tunnel? How do you quickly adjust it rather than having to go to the racetrack, change it, then build a whole new wing? Formula One teams have solved it. But they've also solved it with a bunch of cash. There is a way to think about hardware where you build your initial prototype to be super flexible. Build it so you know what the parameters are that you need to like adjust, and build it to be able to adjust them. So you're building a scaffold, you're not building the product. That is the difference between the physical world and the software world, is the iteration cycle. But there is definitely would be some awesome research to figure out how to make that cycle work in the hardware world.
Yeah, I mean, this, as you said, this applies to software and hardware. There are the cost implications are greater in hardware, but you know, the point that you're making is a really sophisticated one, which is you're trying to optimize for cost of experiment.
Yeah,
and founders
not anything else. You need to really focus on the cost of experiment.
Yeah, that's just not something that we're at the sophisticated level of talking about yet in the startup ecosystem. Investors are not talking about it. Founders are not talking about it. But actually, if you really want to know how to maximize the chance of startup success, you need to optimize for cost of experiment.
Yep, and time for experiment. How long is it taking you to get the results from that experiment, make conclusion, and carry on?
Yeah, 100%. I wanted to pivot to another topic that we were talking about earlier, which is job roles. AI is having a big effect on what work people do, particularly developers, but every other role in the company, whether it's finance, marketing, legal, HR, sales. It's you know, if you're on the leading edge of AI and seeing AI being used, you are seeing massive changes. And I realize there are a whole bunch of people that are at the other end of the spectrum, which is like, and that's most people. And I love the insights that Ben Evans, who's a commenter on AI, sort of says that, you know, most people that are subscribing to ChatGPT can't figure out more than 3 questions a week to ask it. And that's the majority of the ecosystem. Now, founders are at the opposite end of that spectrum, where they're using it like 3 times a minute, and they can see the potential. But most of the world is not there yet. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how you're seeing job roles changing, both within the startup and potentially in the companies that founders are selling into.
Let's go startup first. I think for a startup, you have the advantage of being able to be AI native from the start. You don't have to worry about, you've got these staff, you've got these roles, now you need to figure out how they fit into this new world. I think it's really important to like challenge, like we're a startup. We challenge ourselves often to be like, is this an effective use of time? Am I doing something because I'm comfortable doing it and I think it's really important? Or could AI do this part of what I do? And like, I specifically challenge myself. I've had like an interesting time lately, like challenging myself, like, what do I think I'm good at? I've definitely parked coding as being like, that's a commodity. But really think through like, what else do I do that could be a commodity? Even like as far as we're thinking through this like problem definition space, there is a world where I systemize a big chunk of that, even if it just makes my job easier, but then like, do I hand that out to our clients as well? On the business front, I think it comes to literacy. Like there has to be an education piece. People have to be allowed to play with models. People have to be allowed to integrate models into the way they do things. And then, yeah, again, I said it earlier, like the best use cases for AI come from a frontline staff member doing something every day, having an hour to play with AI and being like, oh my gosh, this would change my life. And there's 100 of me. Give me the space to take that to the manager, to the board, and then find someone who can help you actually implement it. But yeah, on that startup front, being able to like we talked about T-shaped skills offline. Everyone's got a really wide T now, and like, where do you build your skills deeply? And you think you've got to think that through, and then think through what agentic things you're going to use as part of the way you run your business.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, for me, I like, as a personal anecdote, we've always had like marketing off to the side. We don't have a pure marketer in the company. We've probably parked it too much as being like, we're going to use AI for that, but you need someone who's going to execute. AI is really good at giving you ideas, being, you should do this, you should do that. But how do you give it the ability to execute? I think there's still really space for people to execute with AI and not formulate ideas.
Yeah. I want to come back to that point, but just going back to, you mentioned T-shaped skills, and I think it's a really interesting concept, and that it means that you've got a broad breadth of skills, but you're a specialist and deep in something, which means you understand context, so you understand where your speciality fits in the broader world, and T-shaped skills have been around for quite a while, that concept. I think it's a really good one. How do you think that concept is evolving?
Is evolving?
Yeah.
I think
is the T getting, the top of the T getting deeper and you've got to be more, or is it getting broader, or is the specialization getting wider? Like, how is AI changing that skill?
I think it's not a T anymore. you've got one branch coming down, you're going across, but you're building up other, you call it like a stool before, maybe it's a 3-legged stool. I think the best people I've worked with, the way I see this world going is, you've got your T, but you understand what the ones parallel to you are, and you build those deep as well. You don't just keep going wider and wider and wider, because the end of the T's aren't going to be as good as the ones close to you. And it's about maybe going 2 steps out, building 2 T's, then 2 steps out, and then thinking like, this is probably pushing the boundaries a bit, but like off to the side, those things that might go down into specializations, build agents for that. Build yourself something that can help you do that area. So even if you're not getting deeper on it, your agent's getting better and better at it. And that's part of the package that people bring nowadays.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the 3-legged stool, because that's how I think about something like development, where every sort of successful startup has got, they've got a product management function, they've got a design, and then they've got a build development function. And that's sort of the 3-legged stool of building product. And where you say the T's sort of going away and you're being wider, does every one of those roles now have to be aware of every one of those other roles to more depth? Or what are your thoughts?
I think 100%. Like we've got a really cool mix of people here at Do AI. We've tried to go as far away from the core skills we have when we get someone new, to be like, they're going to be out there, but they're going to hopefully come towards us, but also go away from us. And I think there is still a bunch of work in the classic like agile concept is get people together, have them innovating together, and then moving forward from there. And I think as much as we have these T-shaped skills, the trap is being like, now you can do everything, go do it by yourself.
Yeah,
you've got to still work together creatively to build like those individual, we call it like a skill, call it a life experience. Call it like, I've had 3 different types of coffee and I now drink tea, and you're trying to sell a mug. You need to have the tea drinker in the room. It's more than just those skills. Like, we really like, who are you as a person? Who have you talked to yesterday? What do you know about this product that you didn't know before? Having more people who can contribute to that is massive.
Yeah, wow, you're going quite broad there. I just want to bring in a comment from Fred there. He's saying it's a combed shape. It's not T-shaped anymore, it's cone shaped, and I think that's
yeah, I think it's got to be 3-dimensional. I think we're still thinking in 2D, 4D chess.
But yeah, getting back to the development stage, what I'm seeing is every designer is learning to be a developer, and Claude Code is solving that problem. But if they want to commercialize anything and create commercially successful products, they're also learning to be a product manager. And unfortunately, not enough people sort of stumble across what a product manager is and why it's important, but that's a different discussion. And the same is true. Every developer is becoming a designer, and every product manager is becoming a designer and developer. And I think that's how we're seeing jobs collapse into these more generalists. Like you're more of a general builder now, than you were a specialist, UX designer or back-end developer, for example, which those roles are still very much a thing, particularly in large corporations. But for startups, you've kind of got to be a jack of all trades.
I think you do, but like we've got really good personal experience here. But like if you think about building a house, if you're a builder, you could do the plumbing, but should you? It's probably cheaper and better long-term to get a plumber in who's done it 50 times and get them to do it. We started this company I was a developer data scientist, we had a DevOps specialist. Our first hire was a designer. We could have done it, we were doing it, but our products looked night and day from what they were before. It's different personalities, different people, even like they are focusing on something different. It is worth it. It is worth it to be like, you could do that, but should you? Yeah.
It's a really hard conundrum, isn't it? Because you're 100% right. And it sort of goes back to, do you actually have the fundamental first principle skills to understand quality? And I hear the word taste thrown around a lot in the AI world. Is like, you've got to have taste, whether that's taste in, what does a nice piece of code, what does elegant code look like, and scalable and well-architected code, or what does a nice UI look like, or what does a good commercial model look like? And that's where the skill in product management or design or development is still absolutely critical. But at the same time, for very early stage startups that can't afford to diversify and have all those skills, if you just want to get out the blocks and get started, you can build everything yourself, and you're going to have maybe some weaknesses in those areas that are not your speciality and not your thing, but at least you can still get started. And if you want to get started and get started well, you better start getting familiar with these other areas that you might not be experienced in today.
Yeah, what I'd recommend there is, like, as a startup founder, you said before, we're all using AI, maybe we're using it in specific ways, but know you're missing a skill. Build yourself an isolated project, build yourself an isolated agent that is like, I am a designer, this is how I think, this is how I do things. Use it specifically, and don't let it bleed into everything. Don't use one jack of all trades co-strategist. Give yourself those personalities, give yourself the ability to split things out, think through things in different ways, and not, I'm using AI to think about this. As I'm using this agent, this agent, this agent, this agent. Maybe I'll put them together, maybe I won't, but consciously be like, this one knows about this, and this one intentionally doesn't know about these theories over there, and use them separately.
So, super important. This is such an important point. I don't think we talk about this enough in the AI world. And just when you talk about agile teams, that there are certain roles that conflict, that you need different human beings doing the role. Like a developer and a tester, like it's a conflict of interest to have the same person doing the same job, right? And we run into the same problem with AI, don't we? Where this is kind of what you're saying is you actually need to build separate agents that actually have different perspectives and are optimizing for different outcomes that essentially battle each other.
Yeah, your designer and developer, like we've had this with front end and back end, like completely different perspectives, and you need them both to work together. Your front end, you give someone who's got a front end background, design background, build a tool, versus give someone like me, back end AI, data background. We're going to build it completely differently, and then you've got to be able to put them together. We've been struggling with like what comes first, or do you do it at the same time? Haven't solved it. I'm not going to pretend we know exactly the best way to do it, but those two perspectives are really, really important.
Yeah, such a good insight. Such a good insight. Look, I can't believe we burnt through our time already. I could continue down this rabbit hole. There's so much to talk about, like agents and how they're being used and rolling out. I think we'll have to get you on again and have another discussion in the future.
Cool. I love it.
But it's been an absolute pleasure to chat. You've got a ton of experience, and I think you're right on the cusp of what most founders are struggling with, which is how do you make sense of the opportunity and the disruption that we're all experiencing, and get value out of that, both in your career, in your startup, and then products and services for your customers. So really appreciate your time. Now, just tell me a little bit about Do AI. And how founders can find you and contact you if they want to work with you.
I don't have like a plug and play intro, but you've probably heard it today. Is like, we love to hear about unique problems. If you have one that you just want to bounce around, like we would love to talk to you. We have a big thing of like, do you need us or not? Lots of people don't need us, but we learn just as much from you telling us about your idea as hopefully we can teach you about the way we would implement it. So I'd say, I'm not sure, I think those codes are to my LinkedIn and to the website, but please just book a chat. More than happy to talk.
Awesome. Taru, it's been an absolute pleasure. Appreciate your time. It's been absolutely awesome. Hope you have fun in the next little phase as we all figure out AI together. And look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks, Kirk. Appreciate it.
Thanks, mate. All right. Now we're sorting out our next guest. We've got a long line of guests lined up, and we're locking in times because we're not doing a podcast. We're doing a live stream. Timing sometimes is against us, so we'll announce our next guest coming up soon. If you want to stay across our live Q&A live stream, follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll get notification of these next sessions and who our next guests are. Of course, if you're a founder and you want to drill on any of these conversations that we've had today, and you're looking for more clarity and you're looking for diagnostics about exactly how your startup idea might have some impediments that are going to help you, one, build a really high quality business model, and then two, spend your money to validate that. And as we said today, optimized for learning rather than building, which is where most startups and investors get themselves in trouble. Book a strategy session with us. That is a paid engagement. It's 3 hours of your time, and I guarantee it will be the best 3 hours you can ever spend on your startup if you're pre-product market fit, and that's your goal. If you're not quite sure if that's for you, or if you don't know anything about that yet, the second link there is you can book a time with me just to have a chat. I love chatting to founders and helping you find the right resources for you to get to where you're going and help facilitate your success. So if you just want to chat, that second link is for you. Until next time, thanks very much for everyone that joined the show, and appreciate everyone that jumped into the comments and made this more interactive. Thanks for that, and look forward to seeing you in the next show.